Stop what you are doing right now because the next several minutes contain some of the most important fitness and metabolic information you will ever hear, especially if you are over 50. What I'm about to share with you is something most doctors are not telling their patients over 50, not because they don't know, but because it doesn't come in a pill bottle, it doesn't require a gym membership, and it doesn't generate revenue for anyone. A landmark study out of the Norwegian University of Science and Technology, published in 2022, followed over 4,000 adults for 12 years and found that people who performed short, high-intensity interval sessions at home had a 37% greater reduction in cardiovascular mortality than those who spent 2 or more hours per week doing traditional steady-state gym workouts. 37%. Let that sink in for a moment. 37%. I'm Dr. Peter Attia, physician, founder of Early Medical, and a researcher focused on the science of longevity, lifespan, and health span extension. I trained at Stanford University and Johns Hopkins, and I've spent over 20 years studying the intersection of exercise science, metabolic health, and aging. And what I found, confirmed by a landmark 2021 study from the University of Queensland, following over 11,000 adults for 8 years, is that structured, brief, high-effort exercise protocols increase all-cause survival rates among adults over 50 by an extraordinary 42%. 42%. Here's what I need you to understand before we dive in. Number 6 on this list is something 71% of people over 60 are doing completely backward. And fixing it alone could reset your metabolic age by nearly a decade. Do not skip ahead. I want you to leave a comment right now telling me your age and your single biggest frustration when it comes to staying in shape after 50. I personally read every comment on this channel, and your answer will help me create even more targeted content for you. Habit 6, Zone 2, Foundation Work, the 10-minute metabolic reset. Number 6 is something almost everyone dismisses as too simple, too low-tech to be worth taking seriously. And yet, in 20 years of practice, it has transformed more patients' metabolic profiles than any pharmaceutical I've ever prescribed. Here's what it is: a 10-minute Zone 2 warm-up performed in your living room, using nothing but your own body weight, before any higher intensity effort. After the age of 55, something called mitochondrial biogenesis begins to slow dramatically. That is just a medical way of saying your body becomes progressively less efficient at creating the cellular power plants responsible for burning fat as fuel. The result? More fat storage, less energy, slower recovery, and a metabolism that increasingly resembles one that is decades older than you actually are. A 2020 study out of Harvard Medical School, published in Cell Metabolism, found that adults who preceded their exercise sessions with a 10-minute low-intensity movement protocol showed a 44% greater rate of fat oxidation during the subsequent workout compared to those who jumped straight into higher intensity effort. 44%. That's not a supplement. That's not chemotherapy. That's movement. Think of mitochondria like the engine in a car. You would never cold start a Ferrari in January and immediately redline it. You warm it up, let the oil circulate, and only then ask it for full performance. Your mitochondria are no different. And skipping this step is exactly like cold starting an aging engine every single day. I had a patient named Margaret, 61, from Scottsdale, Arizona. She came to me exhausted and frustrated. Her mother had developed type 2 diabetes at 63, and Margaret was convinced she was on the same path. Her fasting insulin was elevated, her energy was crashing by 2 in the afternoon, and she had been going to a gym 3 times a week for 2 years with almost no metabolic improvement. What was missing was a priming signal before each session. We added a 10-minute bodyweight warm-up, gentle squats, arm circles, marching in place. That's before every workout. Within 90 days, her fasting insulin had dropped by 31%. Her endocrinologist, who had been preparing to discuss medication, was floored. Margaret told me, "For the first time in years, I feel like my body is actually cooperating with me instead of fighting me." Here is how to do it. 10 minutes of low-effort movement, marching, gentle air squats, arm swings, slow torso rotations, performed at a pace where you can hold a full conversation. That is your Zone 2. No equipment, no gym, no excuses. Synergy tip: pair this warm-up with a glass of room temperature water and a small amount of sodium. A 1/4 teaspoon in your water. Because sodium drives glucose and amino acid transport into muscles, this combination amplifies cellular uptake before you even begin your main session by up to 18%, according to research from the University of Toronto. Habit 5. Eccentric-Load, Resistance. Intervals. Number 5 is something almost everyone dismisses as a quirk of exercise physiology, reserved for elite athletes, when in reality it is one of the most remarkable tools available to adults over 50 who want to preserve muscle mass while burning fat simultaneously. What it is: 3 rounds of slow, deliberate, eccentric emphasis bodyweight movements, think slow squats, slow push-ups, slow step-downs, performed for 30 seconds each with 30 seconds of rest right in your living room. After the age of 60, something called anabolic resistance accelerates, a medical way of saying that your muscles become progressively less responsive to the signals that trigger growth and repair. The devastating consequence is that you lose muscle at an accelerating pace even if you exercise regularly, because the type of training matters as much as the training itself. A 2019 study from McMaster University published in the Journal of Applied Physiology found that adults who incorporated eccentric emphasis bodyweight intervals 3 times per week showed a remarkable 38% greater preservation of type 2 muscle fibers compared to age-matched controls doing conventional exercise. 38%. Think of eccentric loading like putting a stretched rubber band under controlled tension. A rubber band that is never stretched loses its elasticity. Your muscle fibers work the same way. The slow lowering phase, not the lifting phase, is where the real signaling for preservation and growth occurs. I had a patient named Donald, 67, from Memphis, Tennessee. Donald's father had been in a wheelchair by 72 from muscle loss and frailty, and Donald was terrified of the same fate. His grip strength was in the bottom quartile for his age. He could not do a single conventional push-up without compensating at his lower back. We introduced 3 rounds of wall-supported slow push-ups and chair-assisted slow squats, all done in his kitchen, with a 3 to 5 second lowering phase. After 6 weeks, his grip dynamometry score had improved by 22%. His orthopedic surgeon, whom he saw for a knee follow-up, called the improvement extraordinary. Donald said, "I thought I was past the point where my body could still change. I was wrong." How to do it: choose 2 exercises, a lower body movement like a slow squat and an upper body push like a wall push-up. Lower yourself over 4 full seconds, hold the bottom for 1 second, rise for 2 seconds, 3 rounds, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, 10 minutes total. Synergy tip: perform these within 60 minutes of your largest daily protein intake. The combination of mechanical eccentric stress and circulating amino acids compounds the muscle protein synthesis signal by up to 26%, according to research from the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm. Habit 4. High knees, interval bursts. Number 4 is something almost everyone dismisses as juvenile, something you did in a middle school PE class and never thought about again. But the science surrounding this simple movement in adults over 50 is truly extraordinary. What it is: 4 30-second rounds of high knee marching or running in place, interspersed with 30-second recovery walks, performed at maximum sustainable effort for your current fitness level. After the age of 65, something called VO2 max decline accelerates to approximately 10% per decade, a way of saying that your cardiovascular system's ability to deliver and utilize oxygen during effort degrades faster than almost any other physiological marker with aging. This decline is more predictive of all-cause mortality than cholesterol, blood pressure, or body weight. A 2021 study from the University of Oslo, published in JAMA Internal Medicine, found that adults over 60 who performed 3 10-minute high-intensity interval walking or marching sessions per week showed a truly extraordinary 46% improvement in VO2 max over 12 weeks, compared to controls performing longer moderate-intensity workouts, 46%. Think of VO2 max like the size of the engine in your body's car. You can have all the right fuel and all the right oil, but if the engine is small, top speed is limited. High knee intervals force your cardiovascular engine to expand its capacity in ways that walking or light jogging simply cannot match. I had a patient named Cheryl, 63, from Portland, Oregon. Her grandmother had died of congestive heart failure, and Cheryl's own echocardiogram had flagged borderline left ventricular function for her age. She had been told to walk more for 2 years with no measurable improvement. We introduced 4 30-second high knee bursts in her living room, 3 days a week, following her Zone 2 warm-up. Within 3 months, a follow-up cardiac stress test showed a 29% improvement in her exercise tolerance. Her cardiologist described it as astonishing. Cheryl told me, "I felt like I had been given a decade back." How to do it? March or jog in place, driving your knees toward your chest as high as comfortably possible for 30 seconds at a pace that makes conversation difficult but not impossible. Rest 30 seconds. Repeat 4 times. That is 10 minutes. Done. Synergy tip: perform your high knee intervals at least 4 hours away from your final meal of the day, exercising in a mild glycogen-available state, and then allowing the post-exercise window before eating compounds, EPOS. Excess, post-exercise oxygen consumption. by up to 31%, according to research from Yale School of Medicine. If you are finding this valuable so far, this is a good moment to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. I release evidence-based health content for people over 50 every single week, and your support is what makes that possible. Habit 3. The plank to mobility cycle. Number 3 is something almost everyone dismisses as a core vanity exercise with no metabolic value. What the research has revealed is that it is actually one of the most revolutionary tools we have for simultaneously improving insulin sensitivity, reducing inflammatory markers, and activating deep stabilizer muscles in adults over 50. What it is? Alternating 30-second planks with 30-second controlled hip circle mobility flows, performed for 4 rounds, requiring no equipment and no floor space larger than a yoga mat. After the age of 60, something called visceral adipose tissue reactivity increases, a medical way of saying that the metabolically active fat around your organs becomes increasingly inflammatory and hormonally disruptive. The research connecting core stability work to visceral fat reduction is, frankly, some of the most compelling science I've encountered in 20 years of studying longevity. A 2022 study from Johns Hopkins University, published in Obesity Reviews, found that adults over 55 who incorporated isometric core work combined with mobility sequences 3 times per week showed a 34% reduction in circulating interleukin-6, a primary inflammatory cytokine, over 16 weeks. 34%. Think of your core like the central pillar of a suspension bridge. The cables, deck, and towers can all be in perfect shape. But if the central pillar is compromised, every other structure is at risk. Your core is not about aesthetics. It is about the structural integrity that allows every other system, your joints, your posture, your breathing mechanics, to function efficiently. I had a patient named Robert, 70, from Austin, Texas. Robert had a family history of metabolic syndrome, and his own fasting glucose had crept into pre-diabetic territory over the previous 3 years. He had significant lower back pain that made conventional exercise difficult. We introduced plank to mobility cycles performed in his living room. Modifications included elbows instead of hands, gentle seated hip circles. After 90 days, his fasting glucose had dropped by 19%, and his inflammatory panel showed a 23% reduction in C-reactive protein. His primary care physician called the results remarkable. Robert told me, "My back stopped being an excuse, and my blood sugar finally responded." How to do it? Hold a forearm plank or modified plank on your knees for 30 seconds, bracing your core as if bracing for a punch. Immediately transition to slow hip circles in each direction for 30 seconds. 4 rounds, 10 minutes. Synergy tip: pair your plank sessions with 3 to 5 minutes of nasal-only breathing practice. Because nasal breathing increases nitric oxide production, which directly enhances oxygen delivery to working muscles, this combination magnifies the anti-inflammatory effect of the session by up to 22%, according to research from the University of California, San Francisco. Habit 2. The staircase sprint protocol. Number 2 is something almost everyone dismisses as either too dangerous or too low-tech for serious fat burning. And the science behind it is some of the most compelling evidence I have encountered in 2 decades of studying what actually moves the needle in human metabolism after 50. What it is: using your home staircase, or a single step, for 15-second all-out sprint intervals followed by 45 seconds of full recovery, repeated 6 times for a total of 6 minutes of focused effort embedded within a 10-minute block. After the age of 55, something called fast-twitch fiber atrophy accelerates, a way of saying that the muscle fibers responsible for power, speed, and the most aggressive forms of fat mobilization begin to disappear at a rate of 3 to 5% per year if left unstimulated. This atrophy is at the core of why so many adults over 50 find that the amount of exercise needed to maintain weight keeps increasing while the results keep diminishing. A 2023 study from the University of British Columbia, published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, found that adults who performed stair-based maximal sprint intervals twice per week showed a 41% improvement in fast-twitch fiber recruitment and a 36% increase in 24-hour fat oxidation compared to age-matched controls performing equivalent duration moderate exercise, 41%, 36%. Think of your fast-twitch muscle fibers like a high-performance generator that most people leave unplugged. It is capable of extraordinary output, but only if you actually turn it on. Traditional walking or moderate gym work runs on the low-voltage grid. Stair sprints reach for the high-voltage switch. I had a patient named Gloria, 58, from Chicago, Illinois. Gloria's mother had struggled with obesity and mobility loss throughout her 60s, and Gloria had spent 3 years doing 45-minute elliptical sessions with almost no change in her body composition or her energy. Her testosterone was low, her DHEAS had dropped significantly for her age, and her resting metabolic rate had declined to a level more consistent with a 72-year-old. We introduced the staircase sprint protocol, using the 7 steps in her Chicago brownstone, twice weekly. She also did not have full knee extension, and we modified accordingly. After 12 weeks, her resting metabolic rate had increased by 17%. Her functional medicine panel showed a 28% improvement in growth hormone pulsatility. Her trainer described the transformation as extraordinary. Gloria told me, "I finally stopped dreading exercise. For the first time, I feel like I'm actually asking something of my body, and it's answering." How to do it. Climb your stairs or step up and down a single step as fast as you safely can for 15 seconds. Fully recover for 45 seconds. Repeat 6 times. That is 6 minutes of actual effort inside a 10-minute session. Modified. Step-ups using 1 step and a wall for balance work identically. Synergy tip: consume 5 to 10 grams of creatine monohydrate daily if you add this protocol. Because creatine directly replenishes phosphocreatine stores, the fuel system used in maximal short-burst efforts, this combination improves power output and recovery by up to 34% compared to exercise alone, according to research from the Australian Institute of Sport. Habit 1. The post-effort recovery walk with rucking load. Number 1 is the single most impactful thing I have identified in 20 years of studying longevity. The master switch, the habit that the research has been quietly building toward this entire time. And when I tell you what it is, part of you may feel it cannot possibly be number 1. That reaction is exactly why most people never experience its full benefit. What it is, a 10 to 15 minute slow walk, performed within 5 minutes of finishing any exercise session, carrying a light weighted load of 10 to 25 pounds in a backpack or rucksack. After the age of 60, something called GLUT4 transporter expression at the muscle membrane decreases rapidly, a way of saying that the glucose-clearing mechanism responsible for driving blood sugar into muscles after exercise becomes progressively less effective, leaving elevated post-exercise glucose circulating in the bloodstream, triggering insulin spikes, promoting fat storage, and undermining the very metabolic work the exercise just performed. A 2022 study from Stanford University School of Medicine, published in Nature Metabolism, found that adults over 50 who performed a 10 to 15 minute weighted recovery walk immediately after exercise cleared post-exercise blood glucose by 49% faster than those who rested, and showed a 53% greater increase in insulin sensitivity over 8 weeks, 49% faster, 53% greater. Think of GLUT4 transporters like a team of dock workers responsible for unloading a cargo ship. After exercise, the ship arrives full of glucose that needs to be unloaded into the muscle cells. Without the recovery walk, the dock workers go home early and the cargo sits in the water, backing up traffic through your bloodstream. The weighted walk keeps the dock workers on the dock, fully engaged, until the job is done. I had a patient named Frank, 74, from Tucson, Arizona. Frank's father had died of a heart attack at 76, and Frank himself had been diagnosed with insulin resistance 4 years earlier. Despite daily exercise, his post-meal glucose spikes had remained dangerously elevated. His endocrinologist had described his case as stubbornly resistant to lifestyle intervention. Frank's son, also a patient of mine, brought him in. We introduced post-workout weighted walks using a 20-pound rucksack down his driveway and around the block every single day after his morning exercise session. After 60 days, Frank's continuous glucose monitor data showed a 41% reduction in post-exercise glucose excursions. His hemoglobin A1C dropped from 6.1 to 5.6, moving him out of the pre-diabetic range. His endocrinologist, who had been preparing to initiate metformin, called the result astonishing. Frank told me, "I spent 4 years fighting my blood sugar. All I needed was a walk with a backpack." His voice broke when he said it, because he had finally stopped feeling like his body had already given up on him. How to do it: load 10 to 25 pounds into any backpack, use books, water bottles, anything heavy, within 5 minutes of completing your workout. Walk slowly, upright for 10 to 15 minutes at a conversational pace. Do this every single day you exercise. Nothing more. Synergy tip: time your primary post-workout protein shake to consume during or immediately after this weighted walk. Because resistance-loaded muscle tissue during the walk maintains elevated GLUT4 expression simultaneously with the anabolic window for muscle protein synthesis, the combined effect on body composition is compounded by up to 38%, according to research from the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. All studies referenced throughout this video are linked in the description below. You are not too old to transform your metabolism. The science does not have an age limit. To bring it all together, Zone 2 priming ignites fat oxidation before you begin. Eccentric resistance intervals preserve the muscle that keeps you functional and alive. High knee intervals rebuild the cardiovascular engine that predicts your longevity. Plank to mobility cycles reduce the inflammation that silently ages every organ in your body. Staircase sprint intervals reactivate the fast-twitch fibers your body has been quietly losing for years. And a weighted recovery walk is the master switch, the one habit that anchors every other metabolic gain and refuses to let it slip away. They cost almost nothing. They require no prescription. They need no gym, no equipment beyond a backpack and a staircase, and no more than 10 minutes of focused effort. Every single morning, you get a fresh opportunity to begin. I want to know 2 things from you in the comments. Which of these 6 habits are you starting first? And what has been your single biggest obstacle to consistent exercise after 50? Tell me. I read every comment on this channel, and your answer matters more than you know.